is always helpful. So yeah, hopefully there's plenty of you still here. Yeah, apologies for that delay, slight technical issue. So we finished off talking. I wasn't sure whether Ricky was going to announce the Danichi event, but basically, if you missed it, we've secured. I won't tell you the exact numbers, but it's an awful lot of Danichi selected Tosai Kahaku. So there's going to be something fairly exciting going on in the not too distant future. So we'll keep everyone informed about that, because it's going to be one not to miss. It's going to be, yeah, it's going to be a bit of an event in itself, and something that I don't think will be achieved by many dealers around the world, let alone the UK. So yeah, we are really excited about that one. So yeah, we'll keep you posted as much as possible. So sort of covered the Shinoda Danichi bits. That was a big part of the event. But then it's not just the bigger fish, you know, that we raise some very high quality smaller fish as well. One breeder that we have a bit of an infatuation with is a breeder called Kaze. Those of you that know the breeder, he is known for Deutz Weird and Wonderful, one of the better, or one of the best Deutz Chiba breeders out on the market, and that's a variety that many of you will like but will struggle to get hold of. So yeah, I'm just going to run you through a few images of some of the fish on the day. Little Deutz, 3-step Kahaku. I mean, what's not to like about that? It's just a really pretty fish. You know, probably not a fish that's destined to grow huge, but these types of fish, you really just appreciate them for what they are. Very attractive fish, pretty pattern, great skin, and yeah, to be honest with you, if it's not pushed too much, probably sort of a show style fish in the near future if the pattern stays in check. Deutsche Chiba, always super popular. Probably, yeah, there was maybe 40, 50 pieces of Deutsche Chiba, which is just not easy to get hold of. This was quite a popular fish that sold almost immediately. This fish here as well, yeah, I mean, just the clarity of the pattern, the color on the skin, just outrageous. But that's what this breeder is all about. You pick up all sorts of unique fish. One of the varieties that he's quite strong on is Benny Kiko's and Deutsche Chiba, among many other Deutsch varieties. So yeah, it's proper exciting breeder, that is. And yeah, so I'm just reading some of the comments here. It always happens when the boss is away. Well, yeah, it does technically. It's not my fault, but yeah, I'll take that one. So we'll have a look at a few of the questions that are popping up. Let's have a look. Where are we? Is the production of superb single colour variety koi becoming more difficult to produce than the more predictable Gosanki? I think it's something that people don't give credit for. High level single colour koi are sought after. You know, they really are. I think unlike, you know, Kahaku, Sanki, Showa, most people will probably only have one Chagoi, one Yamabuki, one Orenji Ogot, or so on, you know, whereas people might have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 Kahaku or different types of Gosanki. So with that in mind, the focus of breeders is predominantly with Gosanki because that's market driven. But there are a lot more breeders now that are turning their hand to single color koi. You know, we always go on about Danichi, but he's turned, you know, Ginrin Karashigoi, the yellow monkey line, for an example, a Ginrin Karashigoi, seemingly uninspiring fish for many years. He starts playing at it and bang, it's sort of like mega popular. And I must admit, they grow like mad. and it is a pleasure to watch them grow. The ginrin on them is just on another level. The tone of the fish, the body structure of the fish, and they absolutely fly as well. So with that in mind, I think it's they're just paying more attention to varieties. Certainly the bigger breeders, which they weren't previously. Same with the Red Tiger Denichi Benigoi line. Again, a variety that was, you know, seemingly sort of not given too much attention by most people. Classics saying, "Oh, it's you know, it's just a big old goldfish." But then Denichi comes along, bang! You've got these bright orange with a dark red tone in them, and they get to monstrous sizes, and they've got a body style on them that can't be competed with. Same again, Sakai, the silver fox line. It just goes on and on and on. So these single coloured fish, they're easy to produce in the sense that they don't have pattern, but don't fall into the trap of thinking that they are high level fish, are easy to attain. It often goes unseen by a lot of hobbyists, but silly little things like scale alignment. When you're talking top fish, body, skin, pigment, everything like that is perhaps more obvious. There's nowhere to hide on a single coloured fish. But then you go down to the detail of the scale alignment, and obviously in a single coloured fish, you don't have this pattern to distort the scale alignment. So everything is on display. So there's nowhere to hide. So yeah, good question. I think there is more and more attention being turned to single coloured fish, and they're actually a fish that, if you are working within the parameters of a budget, or if you are finding that patterned fish you're just not able to achieve what you're hoping to, then single coloured fish offer a fantastic way of keeping koi without really stressing about pattern too much. And I've got one customer, a very good customer. He'd never invest more than sort of 250 quid per fish, but he would only buy a single coloured fish. 3 years later, most of his fish are in excess of 70, 75 cm. Don't get me wrong, it's a great pond. He raises the fish very well. But there's nothing that he's invested crazy money in there. And you look at that pond and it's awesome. There's no way of putting it, no other way of putting it. It's just an incredible sight. So yeah, good question. And obviously if anyone's got anything to add there, then they're more than welcome to. So there's a question about the TDS and the RO. Obviously you've probably all heard Ricky's opinion on that over the years. If we delve into the science a little bit more behind it, I understand the argument against it. I mean, TDS has an ability to reduce energy output. So obviously when you feed a fish a kilo of food, for example, if it is expelling an awful lot of energy, keeping hydrated through osmotic regulation, which can take up to about a third of the fish's energy output. If you can reduce that by assisting it and reducing the TDS, so the body doesn't have to use up energy keeping themselves hydrated, then that 1 kilo of food can then be moved to body mass, for example, or growing the fish. I think there's obvious traits with skin quality, pigment maintenance, but they come at a price. If you've got the time, the skill set and the knowledge, then by all means, as Ricky said, you know, I'm no doubt you'll see the benefit from it. But it does take the hobby to another level. And I've seen a lot of people make a lot of mistakes using RO. So I think it would be, my comment on it would probably be proceed with caution. Make sure you're fully aware of what you're getting into, and don't be under the illusion that you can only keep fish by using RO, because that's just not the case. I'm pretty big advocate of that. So yeah, with that in mind, just think twice if you're on the fence about it. You know, look at the results that we're producing up at Koi Wholesale. It's not all about RO water. There's far more to it than that. So yeah. If we move back to some of the questions, what have we got here? What farms are there we go. What farms Ricky looking to visit this autumn harvest? Well, pretty much anything he can get his hands on. So he's out there for 3 weeks this time, or just over 3 weeks. So he's going to try and visit the north and the south. So the more common area that people will be familiar with in Japan is the Niigata region. This is where breeders like Denichi, Hoshikin, Marihiro, Otsuka, the list, Nagami, Teraza, the list goes on and on and on. It is the hub of world koi production. But further down south, they're blessed with a bit of a better climate, and there's quite a few breeders spread around. But we were discussing the routes from Niigata to some of these breeders like Akawa, Omasako, Kondo. It's a trek. It really is. It's not really viable to do it in a week, in all honesty with you, because you've probably got a day driving down south, and then obviously you've got to spend time there, see all the breeders, and then you need to get back up or fly from a different area of Japan. So logistically, it's a bit of fun. But if you keep an eye on Ricky's Facebook page, he's pretty much going to be doing daily updates. So yeah, it's one to keep an eye on. Whilst we were sort of talking about Achiba, have you experienced Achiba getting black, dark, dirty markings on the brown in summer? In winter, my Achiba is clean tea colour brown. Yeah, in a nutshell, they are quite responsive, Achiba, to temperature. So much like a Chagoi, you'll get a different tone throughout the season. This is exactly the same with Achiba. The science behind it, it's a bit of a mixed bag. I've spoken to a few different people about the reasoning behind this, and the general consensus is that the skin seems to be a little bit more responsive. The darker pigment cells in the fish seem to be a bit more responsive within Chagoi Achiba line in warmer weather than it is in cooler weather. The reasoning behind that, I couldn't tell you, but that's definitive. A lot of Chiba and Chagoi have the same presence of this sort of darkening of the skin, and then receding to this really nice light blue color. Literally, that's a great example. You get this beautiful sort of bluey, silvery, grey color, and a nice sort of brassy kind of brown color, and that's what sells this variety. Really, that's what everyone's looking for. If we stick with that same variety, when we go back to the event that we held, one of the varieties that we were looking at was Achiba. These are some of the fish that were on display with our dealers. This is from Koda, a breeder called Koda, who pretty much excels in Achiba and Ginrin Achiba. And these are a few examples that we had. Not crazy high quality, but these fish grow with ease. Probably when you think of Ginrin Achiba, Achiba in general, not really famed for growing crazy big. But there's a reason why this particular lineage was selected. As you can see, the multiple examples here. The Ginrin is in superb quality, but the main reason we decided to grow this particular line was because of this girl here. So this is the parent set for this particular Achiba line. So obviously, as you can see there, it's a show-winning fish, but put that aside, she's 94 cm, and this is the parent line for the Koda Achiba. Now, from this female, she has produced an awful lot of Ginrin Sorogoi, normal Achiba, and then Ginrin Achiba as well. And I must admit, for a variety that I wouldn't say they're famed for not getting big, because they have similar characteristics in terms of feeding, but they certainly don't generally speaking, command the presence that, say, like a Chagoi does, for example. But these fish absolutely fly; they really do, and it was, it was a real pleasure to watch them grow this season, and we've still got a few, not a crazy amount, but we've still got some of the best ones at the farm. So yeah, it's a variety that, given the time of year, autumn leaves on the water, yeah, it's super popular. So yeah, there's a lot of breeders that are quite happy, a lot of dealers that are quite happy to secure these because they're not easy to get hold of. So yeah, it was an interesting variety, and again, the logic behind selecting these was purely from the genetic side of things, and yeah, I think it's fully vindicated with what's been produced. I mean, if we move on to some of the other varieties, probably here's one. I mean, there's a question here about what different varieties. Where are we? There we go. Viewer question there. Are there any new varieties / bloodlines or types of koi that you're looking for, that are ones to look out for? So it does seem to be a bit of a trait at the moment, particularly from the bigger breeders of, I would say experimenting. Experimenting maybe sounds a bit flippant because it's, they're certainly not playing at this. This is, a business and a lifestyle for them, but there's certainly some breeders that are a little bit more, how can I put it, experimental with their combinations. We spoke quite a few times about the Taniguchi, the golden corn. It's not for everyone. It divides opinion massively. I mean, if we look at this example that I'm going to put on the screen here, this was a relatively inexpensive fish at the time and was pure white. And within the space of 12 months, it has developed into a bit of a stonking fish. So this is a variety that is going to gain more and more notoriety, in my opinion. When you see them developing, they are the type of fish that you can beat the breeder. I very much doubt that a breeder is going to be giving fish like this away. So that's part of the appeal for these varieties for me, and it's part of what keeps certain people away from them, because it's reading the future with fish like this. But that's one variety. Another variety that is gaining certainly a Marmite example. Doitsu Aragoke. So these are basically, translation is armored scale. So that's a pretty literal translation there. You can see the fish with the big scales on. It's all to see there. I mean, these come in a bit of a variety of tones and colours as well. Not for everyone. I mean, I had a couple of customers say to me that they look like crazy paving, which I thought was a bit unfair, but it's always dictated by the market. These are fish that are proven to be quite popular with hobbyists around the country. Certainly the introduction of windows in people's koi ponds, that's really been a bit of a game changer because of these big lateral scales along the side of the fish, and the fact that they do grow incredibly big. They come in an awful lot of different tones. They're not for everyone, I'm not getting away from that, but this is something to look out for, and this is something that I really enjoy about koi. There's something for everyone. These sort of two-tone ones are proven to be quite popular. For some people, glorified ghosties, which I've heard that a lot. Which I guess when you actually look at how the fish have been produced and what they're trying to create is a big difference. So let's have a look. Would really like to know what he thinks of Yamazaki for his oddballs. Yamazaki as a farm, it's always worth going to. I think it would very much. I certainly wouldn't be. When you say the word oddballs, I guess he does a lot of Deutsch metallics, a lot of sort of Harawaki, Kikajaku sort of style fish. It's not of breeder that I automatically think of when I think oddballs. Breeders like Aoki, Kaze, Ikarashi Azumi, to name a few. But I guess when we're talking oddballs, we'd probably I would imagine you're probably referring to, some of the stranger Deutz examples. So yeah, been dealing with Yamazaki for years. Tends to be a breeder that does represent quite a lot of value, to be fair. But yeah, in terms of longevity of the fish, yeah, for me, there's probably other farms that automatically pop into my mind. So yeah, hopefully that answers that one. Cheers for the support there, guys. Just reading a few of the comments. Just bear with me. Obviously, this is first time I'm doing this. Yeah. Yeah. It's yeah. Cheers for that, Kevin. The check's in the post, mate. All right, let's have a look at this one. Do you think Ricky is going to be pleased with the size and quality of koi this year? As I've heard, they've had trouble with bears this year. It's not just this year; it's every year. Certainly, some of the mod ponds are quite isolated, to be honest with you. And I remember having to notify a customer a few years ago of a disappointing Azikari result. And the reason behind it was because their particular fish was placed in quite an isolated pond. Now you can imagine some of these ponds really don't have much human interaction other than the breeders checking on them. And typically what happens is the auto feeders are like a red rag to a bull. And given that obviously the bears are in a position where they have to be captured and removed and relocated, it's not as if you can scare a bear off very easily. And it is a genuine issue for certain areas, certain mud ponds in Niigata. So yeah, I had the unfortunate scenario of informing a customer that the results of the mud pond weren't entirely satisfactory. I think that's probably the best way of putting it in terms of size wise. And the reasoning behind it was because the bear kept raiding the last 6 weeks of the season. The bear kept raiding the auto feeders. So as a result, the breeders went, "This is crazy." Every feeder, they're filling up, and a bear is just coming along and raiding it. So at that point, it was pretty much, you're literally teaching the bear to keep coming back to that mud pond at that point, and then they have to get the authorities involved and try to relocate, even if they can. It's not it's not an area that I'm hugely familiar with, but from speaking with breeders, it's not something that happens overnight. So yeah, it is a genuine issue. I've not heard, obviously you hear it every year, perhaps with social media it's becoming a bit more active and people are becoming a bit more aware of it. I would be surprised if the results, you might get some ponds that are suffered more than others, but I would say in general, I don't think that the bear side of things will have a mass impact over the whole of Niigata. Probably more influential things such as weather have a far greater impact on that side of things. What else have we got there? Yeah, so we're looking at, so obviously a low TDS running versus running pure RO. So for those of you that aren't aware, reverse osmosis water basically strips water back to hydrogen and oxygen. As a result, it holds no value. It holds no pH or KH value. So probably people are more familiar with it in the marine industry, and they will take all the impurities out of the water, with the inverts being extremely sensitive to water pollutants. So as a result, they rehydrate the water. They'll resalt the water. In a pond scenario, what people are tending to do is what we call RO, recycled RO. So this is like a compromise, if you will. The idea of mineralizing hundreds, thousands of gallons worth of pond water, A, not practical, B, would block the size of the RO units you would need would be on another level, and it would be risky as well, to be honest with you. So it's something that I played with a few years ago, and it just gave me more stress than I found it worth. I mean, I can achieve very good growth results, good skin, good water parameters. If you get a marginal gain, and I would say it probably is marginal for most people, compared to what I can achieve without using it, it was not for me. But yeah, obviously for some people, they want to take the hobby to the next level, and that's absolutely fine. And ironically, the science of the hobby is what they're into. I'm more about fish development, watching them develop, and seeing what I can achieve without really stressing myself to the nth degree. You know, when I talk to a lot of hobbyists, they all seem to get frustrated with the hobby, and that's not what we want. We just want people to enjoy it. And I think the more levels and layers that you put onto keeping a koi pond, it just distances people from really just enjoying the fish. You know, stressing about, or you know, for example, if your KH starts to swing or your pH starts to swing because your RO levels are fluctuating, that's going to invite problems. So yeah, for me, not for me. I've seen people run it successfully, really well, great results. But you know, I work day in, day out in a place that doesn't employ these techniques, and the results are on par growth wise with what they're achieving in Japan. So from that sense, the proof is in the pudding. So yeah. What have we got here? What's the shipping costs at the moment? Last year they were extortionate, I was told. Yes and no. I mean, I think it would be, you know, you've only got to look at the fact that a pint of milk or a slab of butter or a loaf of bread has gone up in price. You know, there are costs and variables at the moment that are out of our control, but mostly when it comes to shipping, it's about how you do it. If you're starting to take small shipments, then that space that you're paying for is at a premium because there's limited space and limited flights still. So with more flights becoming available, that's going to lessen pressure on that side of things. Classic market demand dictates that when you've got a high demand and low ability to supply that demand, the price goes up. So that was one issue. Fuel surges, that's another thing that we can't get away from. And also the fact that the flights are getting slightly rerouted so that they don't travel over conflicted areas. So you never really know the landed price until the fish are packed and literally you get the paperwork. So if you're shipping on a scale that can be consolidated, and this is probably something that works behind the scenes that hobbyists don't see, it's in everyone's interest to keep shipping as low as possible because this is essentially dead money to everyone, you know. So with that in mind, bigger shipments enable you to get a better price. I would hope that we're not going to see extortionate jumps. And I think it was probably over inflated last year in the public domain how much extra the shipping was costing, because yeah, it was more. But mostly when you're shipping smaller fish, it doesn't really make much of a difference on your end cost. You know, if you're shipping 60, 70 fish in a box and the shipping costs have gone up, you know, just pluck a figure out of thin air, 5-10%, then obviously that is then diluted across 60, 70 fish. So, you know, it's really marginal to the price that the end user pays. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Yeah, but we'll find out. I mean, we've got waiting for the paperwork to come back literally for a shipment next week. So, yeah, I'll probably be able to fill you in a bit more on that then. What have we got? Good question. With Japan opening up for the first time in a good few years, do you think the cost of high grade koi will be slightly lower / higher than pre-COVID, or just the same as other years? So it's an interesting one, really. Obviously, being on the trade side of things, I always find that the prices in Japan don't really shift too much. Classic scenario, I could pick, you know, a dozen fish off the top, a dozen breeders off the top of my head that literally the ponds are the same price each year. You know, Nisai starting at X amount, Tosai starting at Y. They rarely change, but what does change is the other variables. How much yen are you getting for your pound? Are the shipping prices going up? Are there surcharges that you can't account for? So there's quite a lot of variables. Obviously, if the pound is quite strong, you're going to find that you're getting more for your money. There's always a demand. I mean, you could probably argue that certain varieties and certain breeders that market themselves extremely strongly, they're always going to command a high price. COVID, obviously, it was a bit wild, the COVID situation, because you had a massive captive audience sat at home, twiddling their thumbs, getting paid for not working. So, as an industry, we had a massive shot in the arm. It was insane, COVID. I've never sort of had an instant injection of business and revenue like that before. It was just, yeah, crazy. Just we literally could not get enough fish in the country. But the price of the fish didn't really change too much. All that changed was the variables around that, which obviously influence your end price. So, yeah, the answer to your question is I'm anticipating them to be much the same, to be honest with you. I can't see too much. There might be marginal differences in shipping. There might be certain breeders that are gaining more success and notoriety because of the season that they've had. Maybe they've had good results at the shows. So yeah, it's all wait and see. But from what I've seen thus far, and certainly the fish that we've been shipping from Japan, it's remained pretty consistent, in all honesty with you. So yeah, with that in mind, yeah, we will wait and see, but I think, yeah, we're going to be there or thereabouts. If we go to a couple more questions, let's have a look. What have we got here? When you're looking at your single color fish, how do you know which was which? Good question. I mean, obviously, in terms of the koi wholesale facility, we have the ability to isolate fish. So if particular fish were sold, for example, we could isolate the fish, and then the higher end fish, yeah, it does become a bit of a headache, because if you're looking at high end karashigoi, I can imagine for a hobbyist, it becomes a bit of an issue. You know, we've got one pond where it's probably got 35, 40 Akawa karashigoi, all at about 60, 65 cm. This is where imagery comes into place quite a lot. You'll notice the scalation of each fish is different, the shape of the fins. So all the fish are documented in that sense on a higher level. So yeah, to the layman, it probably seems like a real headache. And it can be when you're stood over a pond looking at the fish and there's some fish sold in there. But yeah, from an industry point of view, yeah, there's ways and means around it. So yeah, fortunately, we don't make too many mistakes. I better touch some wood on that one, because I feel like I'm due a mistake. So yeah. Another question here. I bought a Makashi Ogon a couple of years ago as Nisai, about 30 centimeters. It has grown in size but not in length. Would you put this down to genetics or the wrong food at the wrong time? Yeah, good question. Could be a combination. I would likely say that the fish just was never predisposed to get to a particularly big size. I probably need to know a little bit more about your setup to give a really thorough and accurate answer. You mentioned about feeding the wrong food at the wrong time. That can have an influence on generating a belly on the fish. But if it was a couple of years ago and the fish still isn't developing length, then I would probably say that the fish just genetically has not got it in it to generate length, which can happen. It's not to say that when we select fish, we still need to look at the physical characteristics of the fish. A lot of people go, well, I need to buy Sakai fish, I need to buy Danichi fish, I need to buy Momotaro fish because they have the biggest bloodlines and they grow the biggest. Well, that is true, but within those fish, you still need to look at the physical characteristics of the fish. By no means can you just go, right, I'm going to buy Sakai fish and it's going to be massive, because there are still going to be offspring from that farm that don't carry the physical characteristics you need to grow them big. Makashi Ogon, ironically, is a fish that, generally speaking, has quite an ease of growing. They're fairly renowned for ascertaining the good size with not too much effort, to be honest with you. So maybe a tad unfortunate. If you want to send me an image of the fish, then I'm happy to have a look at it and maybe pass a bit more detailed judgment on that. So I'd maybe be able to give you a bit more advice if I actually had a bit more detail on that one. We're just going to move on. Just to finish things, I know Ricky normally does an appreciation post. Obviously, I know I've been putting quite a lot of images of fish up. So hopefully people have enjoyed that. And obviously, if you anything's really caught your eye, then you can let us know and we can put you in touch with the dealers that have purchased these fish. One of the farms that particularly probably goes unnoticed a little bit in the UK. It's a breeder called Hoshikin. Ricky's probably spoken. He's a big champion of this farm. Real irony, because this farm is literally located opposite Danichi. So you've got sort of two powerhouses sat literally either side of the road, which is, it's not uncommon. It's just, I always find it always makes me chuckle, because these guys are next level. But everyone's sort of heard of Danichi. Hoshikin maybe not so much. There's a little bit maybe in the shadow of Danichi, but make no mistake, this is a serious breeder, serious setup, and his ability to develop Kahaku in particular is next level, and they're a great alternative if you don't want to get too carried away. They're quite attainable, even if for your average man or woman, it's not as if you need to be spending thousands on his fish. You can still get attractive fish with his traits. If we look at a few examples here, I mean, don't get me wrong, these aren't world beaters, but these are nice fish that were not crazy money. They grow with ease. I mean, some of these fish were sort of, between sort of 38 to 44 cm. In a heavily stocked pond. Another example, Maritain style fish there. Again, another sort of floral style pattern there. Classic free step, and it really goes on. This farm just, it's never ending. The Kahaku production is just extraordinary. So yeah, it's a great farm and a great alternative if people are looking to invest in Kahaku. That's probably me done tonight, guys. I've got a little 6-month-old that needs a bit of attention, and a 3-year-old boy. Hopefully people found this interesting. Obviously it's my first time doing this. I've been on with Ricky a few times, but obviously hopefully people have enjoyed my take on things. If they haven't, I've wasted your evening. Fair enough. send your complaints to Koi Wholesale, and yeah, they probably won't get responded to. But yeah, it's been great to host tonight, and sorry for that little blip we had earlier. If you've got any questions, then please send them over to us, and we'll make sure that in future issues we cover them. Stay tuned to Ricky's Facebook page and the Koi Wholesale page, because there's going to be boatloads of stuff coming up. It's going to be an exciting few months, and even just, you know, we're all koi freaks. Even if it's just to look at some cool fish, I can guarantee you one thing: that's what you're going to see. So, thanks very much, guys. Thanks for all the comments. Thanks for sticking with me. It's a bit daunting doing this tonight, and I really appreciate your support. And yeah, I'll see you on the next one. And yeah, up the Arsenal.